Hello everybody, happy Halloween, and in today's video we're going to be talking about a couple of teams and what they could be afraid of, as well as a fear of mine. So before we get started, please make sure to subscribe if you're new to me or hockey, whatever the case may be. That being said, let's get on into it. So I'm going to be honest, I picked out a couple of teams for this video. Some of them are serious, most of them are, but a couple are kind of joking. So kicking it off with Anaheim, this one is pretty serious, and this biggest fear for the Ducks, I think right now, would be Lukas Dostal, a name that I'm going to have to get used to pronouncing, going down with an injury. He is a younger goalie that has really produced this season. He has started 7 games for Anaheim and has a plus 940 save percentage in this time. I think it's 943 at the moment, and has the Ducks on pace to have their best year since 2018. This is an organization where at times the rebuild has felt really messy and that the timeline kept getting pushed back on when things would get better. Not even saying that they will be a playoff team by the end of the year, because I really don't think they will be, or even next year, but just to have that potential young starting goalie that could be the future for you and get you back to possibly being in that playoff conversation, maybe even winning those big games in the postseason, is really nice to see. So for Anaheim, this could possibly be a big year for that progress. But if Dostal goes down with an injury, this could get really ugly again for an organization that has seen a lot of ugly seasons. And as for the second team, we have the Boston Bruins. What would Boston's biggest fear be? It'd be hard to pinpoint this exactly for the Spoked Bees, as it seems like a lot of things are weird in Beantown at the moment, but I think finishing bottom of the division would be a big fear for this fan base, basically because they haven't been that bad in a long time. The last time that they finished bottom of the division was 2007, so nearly 20 years ago. But currently, as we stand, they sit at the bottom of the Atlantic, and this is where you kind of look at some teams like Montreal, especially an organization that they are not fond of, and say, man, I would not be thrilled if I was a Boston fan seeing the Habs finish above me, especially considering how good Boston's been over the past few years. Things are just weird though. Like I said, Brad Marchand and the whole extension talk seems to be a little bit odd. And then you have the fact that out of their past 4 games, they've lost 3 of those. One was a loss to the Nashville Predators as the Preds picked up their first win and a 4-0 shutout to Boston. And then they lost recently to the Philadelphia Flyers, a team that's not been very good this year. So 2 shutouts in their past 4 games, not promising. And you could see at the end of the year, Jim Montgomery certainly fired, as well as some other changes for this team. And then we have the Buffalo Sabres. Buffalo has not made the playoffs since 2011, and I think we can all see where this is going. The Sabres aren't in a spot right now where they're probably going to go out there and make the playoffs, thanks in part to them getting off the kind of slow start to the year. They had a little bit of momentum, and they've kind of lost it. I think they just lost their most recent game. It's still very early in the year for this organization, with the power play struggling from what I remember. And it just doesn't feel like this team is going to be able to go out there and get the job done yet again. And I think that season from 2 years ago really did give us that hope that maybe they could go out there and achieve that. And while this year could be good compared to what we saw a couple of years ago for their expectations, it really comes down to just making the playoffs. That is what this organization probably expects at this point. And it's not even necessarily about missing the playoffs this year. It's more about when will things actually end. So their biggest fear would be missing out yet again and not getting in on that fun. And then a team that we picked out here that's more of a silly one is the Florida Panthers, and that would be hearing that the past few years have been a dream. This team has achieved so much over the past 3 years, in particular President's Trophy, winning division titles, most importantly winning the Stanley Cup. And I think for a team, a fan base that really had to deal with a lot from the media, it would just be absolutely awful to imagine this being the reality and then somebody say, hey, you know, time to get up, time to go to work, time to go to school, and say, no, this is what the past 3 years have been for my team. This is not my reality, where they're going back to being that side where it's like, oh yeah, the Panthers don't make the playoffs, or if they do, they get knocked out in the first round. Luckily for you, I've been going to work a lot over the past 3 years, so I would imagine this is reality. So it's not really a serious thing, but could you imagine if you were pulled into a different universe where the Panthers were back to being bad and everybody looked at you funny talking about Panthers winning the Stanley Cup? You're crazy. As for the Nashville Predators' biggest fear, I think this one's a little bit hard to pinpoint as well, but I'd imagine if Steven Stamkos had a down year, especially a historically bad year, that would be very concerning for Nashville. This is a team where they really did have high expectations to start out the year. They're trying to work their way back into it, but Steven Stamkos really hasn't been able to find the back of the net. He has 1 goal in his first 9 games, 3 points in that time. Again, I've talked about how this power play has got those opportunities, and Stamkos probably will be able to break out of that funk a little bit at one point along the year or not. But let's say that he had 10, 15 goals by the end of the season, then you'd start to say we've got an older player that got paid a decent amount of money that is not pulling his weight around for this organization that has big aspirations come playoff time. So I don't think this is going to be something we're talking about by the end of the year, but if it is, then you go into year 2 saying, if he has another quiet season, what kind of trouble are we in? And for the Pittsburgh Penguins, I think their biggest fear would be finishing about where they're at right now. This is an organization that knows what winning is, especially for a sustained period of time. But this looks like it could be their worst year in multiple decades, and they are right there near the bottom of the NHL at the moment. Problem is they've got Crosby, Letang, Malkin, and other big names on this team. it would be really weird to see them finish that low in the standings. And I think that for the front office especially, be very problematic in terms of job security, in terms of pressure from the fan base, because they aren't used to being this bad anymore. So they are in the midst of a 6-game losing streak. I think I just did a video about them yesterday, talking about them in Philadelphia kind of being stuck in a rut right now. If they continue to go along that path, I do think big changes would be made, and I think that this would really be a bad thing for the organization short term, but maybe long term if they got a NHL ready top tier talent, playmaker if you will, to jump into this lineup right away. It could be a positive, but still one of those things where the organization is still saying, I don't want to be at the bottom of the league. And then for the San Jose Sharks, I think their biggest fear right now would be making more of the wrong type of history. They're the first team in the NHL to ever start off the year with no wins for their first 9 games in back-to-back seasons. They have been able to pick up back-to-back W's, so that is promising. This is an organization that just got their first overall pick in the draft, and this was last year, getting Macklin Celebrini. This team also had one of the worst years in franchise history last year, and they could possibly even be worse than that. I don't think that they'll have their worst ever season in franchise history. In fact, I feel like this team should be better than what we saw last year. Again, there are some promising signs, but at the end of the day, for an organization that's been pretty good for a long time, it's very troubling to see them being not only bad in terms of their franchise's history, but league history. So try not to make that history, try to make history in a different way, but for the Sharks, being as bad as they are right now, it's probably going to be hard to do that. Then for the Toronto Maple Leafs, what's their biggest fear? I kind of went with an individual here, and that is never seeing Austin Matthews win anything significant with his team. You see this a lot in sports, talking about one star that is with a team that has maybe a lot of great seasons individually, maybe the team is even good. And I think that this is something where you can also see those players hit a wall when it comes to playoff time with the team. And they never go out there and they never win a championship. And then your legacy is kind of doubted by a lot of people. I think that one thing we'll kind of highlight, I don't really pay attention to baseball anymore, but I know the Dodgers for a long time had guys like Clayton Kershaw that never won the World Series. And I don't really know what happened, but I know that they beat the Yankees in the World Series. Maybe it was yesterday. And I know that for Kershaw, he's now a 2-time World Series champion. From what I know, I don't think he had a huge impact from all this. But with Matthews, you would like to at least be able to say 2-time Stanley Cup champion, even if he didn't go out there and play a big role in the second championship. So with this is something where the fan base in particular is probably seeing this and saying, we would hate to see a player of his caliber go out there and never win anything big. And unfortunately, we're in a spot right now as he's getting near and near to his 30s. That could be the case. So after talking about what a lot of teams are afraid of, I'm going to talk about what I'm afraid of, my biggest fear, if you will. We're not going to do something universal like not having enough money. That is just understandable. We're going to talk about a legitimate fear, something that makes me feel uncomfortable. I am afraid of water, not like drinking it. I drink water just fine, but I think that it's more about swimming. I'm not a very good swimmer. The first time that I ever swam did not go very well at all. They let me go off the diving board in the deep end at the high school. It was kind of like a youth thing that you could do. And I sank to the bottom. Nobody helped me. I had to get to the top. And then I threw up a whole bunch of water because I was inhaling that. And ever since then, I'm just not a huge fan. I'll go in pools, no problem. I'll go in lakes, no problem. But I don't go very far from the edge, and I'm not a good swimmer at all. So I will go out there and go to the lake, Lake Michigan and whatnot, and hang out with friends and family. But we'll have a couple guys that'll say, let's go out there and see how far we can swim. I can't do it. I don't, shut down, but I'm just like, I refuse to do it. So anyway, that's just kind of a unique thing you can learn about me. What are some of the biggest fears for your team? Let me know down below. Let me know if you have any Halloween plans tonight. Everybody, please make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new. Everybody stay safe. Have a great night. And you can love hockey, all right. Goodbye, Brigadiers and Brigadettes. This is your captain signing off. Have a great night.